What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is NCIS Season 18, Episode 1, Sturgeon Season. So, on the one hand, I'm glad that we're finally getting some answers for what was going on last season with Fornell and his daughter and all this stuff that we weren't seeing happening. But that's not to say there weren't some problems with this episode. First of all, everything going on with Fornell, I really have a very similar feeling to how I felt last season in the one episode where Gibbs' friend, I think his name is Phil. I've honestly forgotten his name because he's such a non-memorable character. But there's the episode where he wants him to go in and pretend to, be there for this woman and get the hair off of her brush and all that. Yeah, that episode kind of pissed me off because I'm thinking, Gibbs, you're smarter than this. You know he's going to mess it up because he's an idiot. In the same sense here, he should know that Fornell is going to get too emotionally involved and he's going to mess things up because of that. But he's still just like, oh yeah, Fornell, come on, let's go do your thing. We're going to do this. I don't know. I get that he's his friend, but that also means he should be one of the first people to go, look, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to get yourself in trouble if you're letting your emotions dictate everything right now. So you need to calm down or you just need to step aside and let me do this. So I just think he's being really dumb when it comes to that. Or maybe in his mind he's thinking, well, he's probably going to go do it on his own anyway, so better for me to be there to help him. But in that case, why then just say, yeah, just go ahead and do it on the one day that he can't be there because he's dealing with his other case? I think that's kind of dumb. So in some way, Gibbs is being dumb in this scenario. So yeah, I'm not really a fan of that right now, but we'll see where it goes. The case in this episode, the whole thing with Jimmy and this body disappearing, it was fine. A little bit of mystery involved. What happened to the body? Nobody knows. Jimmy's car blows up. Holy crap, what's going on? Yeah, it was a pretty good setup, some intensity building, but it was wrapped up very quickly as well. And I feel like part of that was just to give more time to Fornell's story. So there were a lot of things that just happened very suddenly, where it's like, okay, well, they're chasing the guy, and then he gets hit by a car. Now he's dead. Well, now they need to find the daughter. Well, they're going to his place, and they're going to this underground shelter, and then she's in there. We found her. She's good. So it felt very rushed. It felt very, I don't know, not very well put together by the end of it. But at least the beginning of it did get me excited to see what was going to happen. And then the other thing that I'm not really sure what's going on with it is, of course, the beginning where we see Gibbs. I believe that was McGee. It sounded like McGee. He said NCIS, but there was just one shot where I'm like, it doesn't really look like him, but also he's got like this expression of pain on his face, so maybe it's just his face is contorted to the point where he doesn't look familiar. But yeah, Gibbs is shooting him for some reason. Don't know what that's about. I think there's a typo, though, because it pops up and says March 2020. This episode was aired November 2020. Like, the season before this, season 17, ended sometime, I think, in like April of 2020 or May, maybe. So they're saying that's already happened where we are now. Unless they're doing something where we're going back in time and we're just sort of watching through. But if that's the case, then there should have been an episode where McGee had some gunshot wounds. I don't think we ever saw that. Again, unless this wasn't McGee and it was somebody that looked and sounded similar to him. So I think that was probably a typo, though. I'm assuming they probably meant March 2021. Because that's the thing, is you could say, well, the dates don't exactly match up. But they said November 2019, and then they flashed back to an episode, and I looked it up. It was the episode that happened on November 21st, 2019 or something like that. So they are matching up the dates quite a bit. I assume they meant to say March 2021, which means when we get to the episodes that aired in March 2021, that's probably when we'll see what exactly was going on in that scene and how we got there. At least I hope that's how they're doing it, because it's a little cliche, but I do like those stories where they're like, all right, here's where we ended, and now here's how we got there. There's something fun about seeing the journey to get there, but with that being said, I also don't expect every single episode to tie into this overarching story, because that's not the NCIS way. Probably going to have a few episodes here and there that we get a little bit more information, and then we'll get to the mid-season finale where, boom, a ton of information hits. But yeah, so that's about it for this first episode. On to the second one. I'll see you there. And now, episode 2, Everything Starts Somewhere. So, pretty decent episode. I liked getting to see, Gibbs and Ducky younger working together. I'm pretty sure we've seen the young Ducky before in the show. I don't know if we've seen the young Gibbs. It's been so long, I don't really remember, because I know they've done flashbacks before, but I just can't remember if they ever had like a younger version of Gibbs and if this guy has played him before. But I thought they both, captured the I don't know, physicalities of the characters very well, so I enjoyed that. But yeah, overall, I mean, it was fine, tied in with kind of the first meeting of Gibbs and Ducky and this case with this mafia guy who's, you know, essentially able to get away with a lot of stuff because he's very powerful, and working on bringing him down and figuring out what one of his cousins was doing inside NCIS. So, I mean, all in all, it was perfectly fine. Everything moved forward pretty smoothly. There was nothing really good or bad of note to talk about in this episode, if I'm being honest. Like, nothing's really standing out to me. As far as like, oh, well, this is something I really need to talk about. So it was one of those episodes that I could just sit back and watch and enjoy because it was pretty straightforward. It was well written, and yeah, that's about it. I will say I did enjoy the joke of at the end where Gibbs calls McGee. It's like, hey, you guys still coming out, or you guys still having drinks? Because I think about coming out, and then just silence. I'll sit here towards Gibbs is coming out. It's great. But yeah, aside from that, I know this is kind of a shorter review of an episode, but honestly, this was really what I was expecting NCIS reviews to be, is stuff like this, where the episodes are just very straightforward. There's nothing really amazing or nothing terrible. It's just sort of okay. It's decent. I did not expect last season to be as bad as it was, and for me to go as in-depth as I did, but, well, here we are. So, but yeah, that's about it for this one, so on to the next one. I'll see you there. And now, episode 3, Blood and Treasure. So, very much like the last one, just pretty straightforward episode. It was okay, kind of a typical NCIS fashion. All the stuff about the treasure, it seems to be focused on these few suspects, and maybe one of them had something to do with it. And then at the end of it, it was just this one guy that we saw earlier, this random rock climbing place worker who was just sort of there for a second and then gone, and we didn't see him again until the end. It's just like, oh, it was him the whole time. So it is one of my least favorite tropes, but it's okay. It was fine. It made sense, at least, unlike the other one where, like, with the whole fake con school or whatever, and then the one random guy that was just a student turned out to not actually be a student. That was dumb. This was like, okay, so he was around them. He did hear about this, so it would make sense. Now, the fact that he was a gambler and all this stuff, yeah, that would have been nice to know about, before, after the fact. But as it was, like I said, it was fine. The stuff with kind of what's going on with Torres, just sort of nice little joke. I thought it was funny that he's just sitting there trying to figure out who opened a tab in his name, and then finding out at the end, oh, it was a picture. And then it turned into a nice moment because it was a fun little picture of everyone together. So, and I really do feel like the team this season so far, I mean, granted, it's only 3 episodes in, so they still have plenty of the season to really piss me off. But so far, it's actually been pretty solid. Like, I think Casey even has been okay. Like, I feel like she's integrating into the team a lot better, and her scenes are feeling a little bit more comfortable, less cringy for me. So either I'm getting more used to her, or the writing and the acting is getting better for her. One of those two is improving. Not sure what. But I feel like there's a lot more bouncing off of her, the team working well with her, and the jokes are landing a bit better. There still are some ones that will be slipped in that are just kind of like, it's not that funny. But for the most part, they're solid enough. And then there's, of course, the other story, which I'm glad that they are bringing back Fornell for more than just that first episode, and then, like, we just never hear about that story again. I'm glad that we're actually getting a lot more of the story as we progress. It was the first episode, now it's the 3rd episode. Are we going to see him again for the next 2 or 3? I don't know. But I'm glad that it wasn't just we're ignoring the Fornell story until the mid-season finale. We actually are getting more pieces of it. Granted, I don't exactly know where it's going at this point. Him working at this little fast food restaurant had its funny moments, also had its kind of cringy moments as well, like the moment where he walks in the door and the one girl, clearly just this entitled rich girl, who I what was the line that she said? Oh, it was so it was she was talking to somebody on the phone, and they were telling her a story about another girl, and then she's like, "That is so Virgo of her," or something along those lines. And I don't know, just something about it. It just made me go, "Why? Why do you feel like you need to just put down all of the cliche things that you think young people say?" Like, granted, I would probably make those jokes, but at the same time, I don't necessarily want to see writers on a professional TV show making these jokes, because it's supposed to be jokes made in more realistic setting, and that's not very realistic for me. It's kind of like the gaming episode, the streaming episode in the last season. It's almost like they just sort of write all of these cliches that they think everybody that's around that age says, and it just comes off as kind of out of touch. Oh, that's so Virgo of her. Nobody says that. Like, you might see people say that online, but nobody says that in real life, because that's not a common saying. So that scene with her, I don't know if it's going to tie in. Her dad was standing there looking kind of menacing, so I don't know if he's involved in this whole drug smuggling operation going on. But it just seemed very random that he spills all this stuff because she won't get out of the way because she's entitled. Yeah, I don't know. It just, that was the only scene for all the Fornell stuff that was just kind of like, what was that about? But everything else, his joke about, oh, the boss man is pretty strict guy, and then it's like this young kid. We've seen that joke before, but it's always funny. And then on top of that, Gibbs just disappearing like Batman, also hilarious. And then aside from that, just all of the different moving pieces, you could see Fornell's really dug in. He's working hard. Is he getting overinvested? Probably a little bit, but he's actually finding clues and he's sticking to it. So he's not messing things up as badly as I was worried he was going to. Of course, now that he's gone missing, there's a lot of questions involved with that. Are we going to see that continue in this next episode, or is it going to be something that's not talked about for a couple? We'll see. But yeah, all in all, fairly decent episode, and that's about it for this one. So yeah, that's it for these three. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these three episodes? Let me know what you can talk about, discuss, all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future NCIS reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.